supported by the USA and carried out a heinous attack against civilians in the Russian city of Sevastopol in Crimea. Ukraine launched 5 US-supplied Attack-MS missiles armed with cluster munitions. An American Global Hawk UAV was patrolling the airspace over the Crimean Peninsula. The beach area packed with peaceful citizens enjoying their weekend and Orthodox holiday was hit. Fire came from the sky on unprotected people who had nowhere to hide. Sand turned into blood. The video footage from the scene is just shocking. 151 persons were injured, among them 27 children. 4 people died, including 2 children. All responsible for this and other terrorist attacks will be held accountable. The fact that the US is directly involved in this crime is beyond any doubt. The lack of any meaningful response from the UN Secretariat that is supposed to stand against such obvious crimes and violations of international law is even more regretful. It is a clear example of double standards of the UN Secretariat, who is very eloquent on other occasions. The strike targeting civilians in Sevastopol will not go unanswered. There will be measures in response. The Russian Federation will continue to protect its people and its national security until no threat is posed by the neo-Nazi regime in Kiev that was breeded, raised and financed by the West.
The concept of atomic war is too horrible for man to endure and to practice, and he must find some way out of it. That's all I think about this thing.
It is uncivilized on the part of all of us to be sitting here with the only deterrent to war, offensive nuclear weapons, that in such numbers that both of us could threaten the other with the death and the annihilation of millions and millions of each other's people.
Okay, so let's talk about U.S. foreign policy, these foreign wars, these proxy wars. Let's get an update. I haven't talked about it in a couple of weeks. So a lot has been going on since the last time I talked about Russia, China, Putin, all of that. The U.S. and Ukraine together attacked Crimea. They attacked the Russian city of Sevastopol a couple weeks ago. Injured over 100 people. I just showed the clip at the beginning. Killed several, injured all these little kids. A couple of kids died from it. Basically, the U.S. gave their attack on missiles very pricey to Ukraine and told the Ukrainians, yeah, shoot over there. Now, the United States is trying to come out and say, well, now the Ukrainians chose to do that. But here's the thing about that. These things require very specific, top secret targeting. So U.S. technicians have to do that. The Ukrainians don't have the clearance and the technical capability of doing the targeting, doing the tracking, and seeing exactly where they want to hit. So the United States gave Ukraine this weapon, and the United States used their drone to say, oh, here's the target right here. It was probably a combination of the drone, satellite, other type of surveillance. So the United States basically used their top secret surveillance capabilities that the Ukrainians don't even have access to find a Russian target in Russia, even though they're trying to claim that it's Ukrainian, but it's really not Ukrainian, it's Russian. But the United States used their tracking capability to find a target in Russia. They gave Ukraine the American missiles that also require the text to program it. It requires U.S. text to program the missiles. And then they just told the Ukrainians to push the button. Now, if someone had an enemy, right? Let's just say it's some weak guy. He had an enemy. He said, you know what? I'm tired of this guy. I want to go do some serious damage to him. And then another guy said, okay, well, I'm going to give you a loaded gun. I'm going to tell you exactly when and where to find him. Wouldn't the person who gave him the loaded gun and told him when and where to find him, wouldn't he also be an accomplice in this crime? But the U.S. is trying to act like, no. Of course, we use our top secret surveillance to find the target. Of course, our text programmed the missile that we gave Ukraine. But no, we have nothing to do with it. A bunch of Russian civilians were injured. A lot of them died. Children died. Oh, no, not our problem.
We provide weapons to Ukraine so it can defend its sovereign territory against armed aggression. That includes in Crimea, which of course is part of Ukraine. And Russia could stop this war today and end the suffering caused by the war Russia launched today. if it would stop its occupation of sovereign Ukrainian territory and stop launching attacks on civilians.
So Putin said before, when the Ukrainians attacked into Belgorod before this incident, Putin said that, well, maybe we'll just find some type of asymmetric ways to deal with these incursions, deal with the United States arming Ukraine. Maybe we'll just look into some asymmetric warfare. And that was right before the Russian ships reached Cuba. But the United States and Ukraine together are accomplices in war crimes, even though some people argue, well, the Russians committing war crimes, but I'm not really going to get into that debate right now. So what we're going to talk about is Putin considering arming with high-tech, extremely powerful arms some of the U.S.'s ops. So we know that the U.S. is at war with Yemen right now, having a very, very difficult time stopping the Houthis. Fully equipped carrier battle group over there attacking the Houthis and having trouble. In fact, the USS Eisenhower was very, very likely struck by a Houthi missile, even though, of course, the Navy, the Pentagon, they're going to lie about it. They would never tell us the truth. But when you look at all the evidence, everything that went down, I would say more likely than not. But that's a different video discussing exactly what happened. I might do a video on that. But the Russians are saying, you know what? How about we equip the Houthis? So we're going to get into this article here. When the Russians first started talking about asymmetric warfare, people were saying, well, who are they going to arm? Are they going to help Iran? Are they going to put missiles in Cuba? And I said, you know what? The biggest danger right now is, what if the Russians give some high-tech missiles to the Houthis, who are at war with the U.S. right now, fighting the U.S. Navy? What if the Russians gave the Houthis the capability of actually sinking these U.S. ships? That would cause a lot of problems. And look at this. Putin mulls arming Houthis with cruise missiles. And these cruise missiles are way, way more accurate, dangerous, deadly, and powerful than what the Houthis are making themselves and what they're getting from Iran. So we know that Putin met with Kim Jong-un. They're sharing nuclear technology. He's going to help the North Koreans with their nuclear weapon. Of course, Russia and Iran, they've been exchanging technology. Russia and China, they've been exchanging. And now it looks like Yemen has joined the team. People act like Houthis are just some ragtag group. Oh, they're just a rebel group in the desert wearing sandals. Actually, the Houthis took over the country like 10 years ago. And most of the people in Yemen, the Yemenis support the Houthis. The Houthis are the government. So the U.S. government calls them the Houthi rebel terrorist group to make them sound like they're just another ragtag Taliban-like group, when in actuality, it's the Yemeni army. That's who the U.S. is at war with right now. So let's get into this article here. Closer cooperation between Russia and the Houthis in Yemen could exacerbate the strategic dilemma facing Western powers as they seek to protect commercial shipping in the Red Sea and beyond. There are indications that Russian President Vladimir Putin is considering supplying the Iran-lined Yemen Houthi movement. You see how they word this? The Houthi movement. Let's just correct and say what's actually happening without the spin. Russian President Vladimir Putin is considering supplying the Yemeni army with anti-ship ballistic cruise missiles, Middle East Eye, MEE, citing an unnamed senior U.S. official, reported Saturday. So I know the U.S. is very, very concerned about this because they're over there bombing this place. They had to carry a battle group parked in the Red Sea, even though the Red Sea is way too hostile now. They kind of ran off to the Mediterranean Sea, but they were launching airstrikes on Yemen, killed a lot of civilians, killed some military personnel down there in Yemen. And the Yemeni are fighting back. Like I said, it's more likely than not that they did strike the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier. But the U.S. is very concerned, even though they're going to act like it's nothing, because if they get increased ship killing technology, the U.S. is in a world of hurt. They're over here fighting a war. The U.S. launched a war against the nation of Yemen, undeclared war, and most Americans are sleeping at the wheel, not even paying attention. But the U.S. launched a war without congressional approval against the nation of Yemen. And now Russia might supply Yemen with some more sophisticated technology to actually fight back in a much more aggressive way. They've already been aggressive, sinking a bunch of civilian ships that are going to supply the Israelis and the UK. But we're talking about the technology to drop off some of these cruisers, some of these destroyers, and maybe even a carrier. There was also some noise a couple of months ago about a destroyer, the USS Mason, being hit, but I'm not sure about that one. Newsweek contacted the Kremlin via email to request comment. Moscow has been coordinating with the Houthis as part of its growing alignment with Iran, with the Kremlin seeking new and deeper alliances among anti-Western powers following its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. So let's look at a clip real quick of Putin talking about this. He's saying, look, if the United States wants to run a proxy against us, they want to arm and spend billions and billions of dollars on Ukraine and get these sucker Western European powers to do the same thing. If they want to run this game and kill Russian civilians, attack Russian territories, can we do the same thing? Don't we have the right to do the same thing? Don't we have the right to help North Korea develop accurate, powerful ICBMs that can strike the United States, that can threaten the United States and the West Pacific? Don't we have the right to go to Cuba and put arms in Cuba, train the Cuban military? And of course, we see that the U.S. Navy is at war with Yemen right now. Don't we have the right to supply the Yemeni?
Если кто-то считает возможным поставлять такое оружие в зону боевых действий для нанесения ударов по нашей территории и создания проблем для нас, то почему у нас нет права поставлять наше оружие такого же класса в те регионы мира, где будут наноситься удары по чувствительным объектам тех стран, которые делают это в отношении России? То есть ответ может быть асимметричным. Мы над этим подумаем. И в конечном итоге, если мы видим, что эти страны втягиваются в войну против нас, а это и есть их прямое участие в войне против Российской Федерации, то мы оставляем за собой право действовать аналогичным образом. Ну, в общем, это путь к очень серьезным проблемам.
If they're supplying the Ukrainians, don't we have the right to supply the Yemeni? How about we give them some arms to take out a U.S. ship? How about we see carriers sinking at the bottom of the Red Sea or afraid to enter the Red Sea altogether? And I think they're sending the Roosevelt, the USS Roosevelt over there, and the Houthis, they're already saying they're itching. They're waiting. Please hurry up and get this thing to the Red Sea so we can start firing at it. And there are rumors that the Houthis have hypersonic missiles, but we haven't seen them yet. Since Hamas's October 7 attack on Israel and the country's subsequent war in the Gaza Strip, the Houthis have been attacking commercial shipping and Western military vessels operating in the Red, Mediterranean Seas, and Arabian Seas. The organization has vowed to continue and expand its attack unless Israel fully withdraws from Gaza. And Israel is having trouble over there in Gaza. It's not as easy as they thought. Looks like they're trying to distract, talking about they want to go to war with Hezbollah right now. But that's a different video too. Earlier this year, the Houthis agreed not to target Russian or Chinese ships. You see what I'm saying? This is an alliance building up. Yemen, China, Russia. And the U.S. really got pissed off at this and actually tried to deny it. Said, no, they are hitting Russian ships, but they're not targeting Russian ships. In March, Houthi Political Bureau member Ali Al-Qahoum said there is a constant cooperation and development of relations between Yemen, Russia, China, and BRICS states, as well as an exchange of knowledge and experience in various areas. So this isn't 2001, 2003, when the United States was able to build that coalition of the willing, felt like it was the sole superpower in the world, and it was bombing a bunch of cavemen in Afghanistan and the weak-ass Iraqis. It seems like these alliances are building up. These nations are becoming more sophisticated and more powerful. And this is why I do these videos. At the same time, the United States military has been gutted. First of all, they infiltrated it with wokeness. We have a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs who committed treason against Trump, but that's a different video too, talking about Milley, General Milley. We have people who don't want to join the military. The government said they're going to start automatically registering all males for the draft and got a lot of backlash from that. So the military is way smaller than any time in recent decades, yet it's more expensive than ever. Having an extremely hard time recruiting. They cannot recruit officers. They cannot recruit enlisted. Nobody wants to join. Filled with wokeness, and had a top dog who committed treason against the commander-in-chief. And it's stretched thin. They wanted to push all these assets in China, yet they're trying to help the Ukrainians, yet they're trying to help Israel against Hezbollah, but you're in the Red Sea, and you got these other places too, these other hotspots in the world. So your military is just not big enough to stretch it that thin. And of course, look at the commander-in-chief. This man is sleeping at the wheel and the military is really being run by a bunch of left-wing idiots. And yet, these neocons and these people in charge of the military industrial complex getting billions of dollars, they're itching for war. They're itching for World War III, thinking that the United States is completely superior when there's a lot of flaws. And I think it's a very bad idea to engage in all these wars. So I do videos like this for awareness, because I'm trying to say that it is a terrible idea and we will get in a heap of military trouble if we start these wars, because I don't think a major war against these countries right now is going to work out in the U.S.'s favor. This is necessary to drown America, the U.S. and the West, in the mire around the Red Sea, to get them bogged down, weakened, and become unable to maintain the unipolarity. So the United States' main goal, the neocons' main goals, was to fight China. Even though the United States does more trading with China than any other country in the world, it will be an economic disaster. And another thing about that is, there's an old saying about a naval ship trying to fight a fort. It's a foolish idea. You can't bring ships across the ocean and try to fight them from the land. It's not like China's going to meet you in the open ocean. It's not going to be a battle of Midway. You're going to pull up to China and you're going to run out of ammo. You're not going to be able to protect your ships properly because you're completely sea-based while they're attacking from land. Unless you think South Korea, Philippines are going to jump in that war and get caught up in a war with China. I don't think they want any parts of that. So the United States wants all these assets, yet they're trying to start wars in the Middle East thinking it's going to be easy. And at the same time, they're trying their best to push Putin into a full-scale U.S.-Russia war. Terrible idea. And if you think that the United States can launch all of these wars and be successful and dominate, that's pure arrogance. And it shows ignorance of what's actually going on. The BRICS group first comprised Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Its ranks expanded with Saudi Arabia. U.S. ally Saudi Arabia, all that protection and money U.S. gave Saudi Arabia, now they're with BRICS. Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, and the UAE, another ally, funded and all that by the United States, also has U.S. weapons, jets, and everything. I think they have those vaunted F-16s over there in the UAE too. The Houthis are already believed to possess Russian-made P-80 Oinks supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles acquired via Syria and the Lebanese Hezbollah militia. Let's take a look at this missile real quick. We're talking about a very powerful anti-ship cruise missiles that can do some serious damage to the U.S. military. So let's take a look at this short clip.
It's one of the deadliest anti-ship missiles. The Russian P-800 Onyx is a fire-and-forget weapon. Launched from land or sea, it flies aerodynamically using cropped delta wings. Pulses from nose cone rockets stabilize it, turning it parallel to the surface. As the nose cone is ejected, a ramjet is exposed, activating once a rocket booster propels it to the right speed. Finally, satellite guidance and target radar tracking take over. The missile has the NATO codename SSN-26 Strobil. Its key advantages are a 370-mile over-the-horizon firing range, full autonomy in combat, low-profile sea-skimming trajectories, and high supersonic speed in all phases of flight. This puts the odds of avoiding naval defensive systems in its favor, along with resistance to electronic countermeasures. Its warhead can be conventional or nuclear, the latter making it a so-called carrier killer, but a conventional warhead can inflict devastating damage. Operators include Russia, Syria, and Vietnam, with a variant developed in India. Fears that a terror group aligned with a Russian ally might obtain the missile are food for thought for Western naval vessels responding to the current Middle East crisis.
A lot of people are coping about this. Well, it's Russian, so that means the missile's not going to work because Russians are trash, Russians are sorry. So if they have an anti-ship missile, that means the missile is just going to self-detonate at launch and it's not going to do anything. Oh, no, we can stop this easily because it's Russian. We're better than them in every way. So we have a lot of people coping and don't want to get with the reality. How about we make a real military assessment and say this thing can be extremely dangerous to the Navy. And if the Houthis have it and we have carrier battle groups over there attacking Yemeni and bombing Yemeni civilians, which is what's been happening over the last several months, what if they launch several of these and hit one of our ships? So we want to go to war with China. What if They launched several of these and actually sink a ship, kill a couple of thousand sailors. Then what? Are we going to have a full-blown ground operation in Yemen? Are we going to put 50,000 Marines on the ground in Yemen? Okay, go ahead and do that. But what if you do that and Russia ramps up with Ukraine, and at the same time China encircles Taiwan? You see, the United States military is not big enough and powerful enough to fight all these wars at the same time unless it goes nuclear. What if this happens? You get a couple of sunken ships. Are you going to blame the Russians, saying, well, you supplied them, it's your fault, Russia, because you gave them the missiles to sink our ship, just like we gave Ukraine missiles to sink your ship? So is the United States going to go to war with Russia over this? My point is, it's a terrible, terrible idea to engage in all these wars. The only thing that's happening is poor people are dying, and these neocons and military-industrial complex people are getting filthy rich. Russia's RIA Novoskoye News reported in March that the group had begun producing its own hypersonic missile. So you got the Houthis being supplied by Russia, allegedly having this anti-ship missile, probably do. And Putin is over here talking about, well, maybe I'll give them some powerful stuff. Maybe I won't. I guess you'll find out. And at the same time, they're building their own missile. The group's missile forces have successfully tested a missile that is capable of reaching speeds up to Mach 8 and runs on solid fuel, an unnamed military source close to the Houthis told the news agency. Now we're going to get into the bigotry going on. And it's not a word I use a lot, but when it comes to these military issues, when it comes to what people call American exceptionalism, there's a lot of arrogance and bigotry going on. Because you say, oh, it's a bunch of Yemeni. They don't know how to build a missile. They don't know anything. That's sorry. They're Yemeni. We're the ones who know how to build all the good stuff. They're too dumb and they're too unsophisticated and don't have a culture and they don't know how to do stuff. So you quickly underestimate them just because of who they are. Oh, it's a bunch of Muslim people running around in the desert. No, they're not us. They're not like Americans. We are the good people. We know how to make the good stuff. And you keep that arrogant ass attitude and sit here and think that you're better than other people just because of who they are. Bunch of Middle Eastern people over there living in the Arabian Peninsula. Okay, you keep that mentality, and then when something happens to one of your ships, then what you're going to do? Cry and bitch? I just think it's a terrible mentality, and that type of mentality can march America into disasters. People say it about the Russians. Oh, the Russians are dumb, they're trash. We're America, we're the good guys, we're better than everybody at everything. In fact, we can wage war with the whole world. We can go solo against the whole world and win. Complete arrogance. Looking down on your enemies, thinking that you're better than them. But if something happens, if disaster happens, you're going to learn the hard way. They look down, oh, it's a bunch of poor Asian people over there in the Vietnamese jungle. What? Ugh. They don't even have proper shoes and clothes, walking around with that funny hat on their head. Who are these people? These people are not cultured and sophisticated like us. We can easily beat them. How did it work out? So drop that mentality and stop waging all these wars. Stop thinking that you can just easily beat everybody. And maybe we can have more peace in the world and less poor people will die. And we can stop these neocons. The U.S. dismissed the report. There we go. The U.S. dismissed the report. Look, on the hypersonic thing, those reports are inaccurate. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby told reporters at a briefing, there's absolutely no indication that the Houthis have access to a hypersonic missile, so I can walk you off of that. So that's what I mean with that arrogance. You just quickly dismiss, no, it's the Houthis. Oh, it's the Yemeni. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything. They don't know how to do math and engineering. They don't know anything about that. They're Yemeni. They're not Americans. They don't know anything. Or it could be that John Kirby is lying, because John Kirby is a well-known liar. He lies about military affairs all of the time. So maybe the military does know something, but of course they're going to lie to the American public. Whether it's about a carrier being hit or the capabilities of the Houthis or what's really going on in the Russia-Ukraine war, the U.S. military will straight up lie to the American people. But the organization may seek to bolster its arsenal with new Russian weapons. William Usher, a former senior Middle East analyst at the CIA, told MAEE that an escalation of Israel-Hezbollah border skirmishes into full-scale war would likely deepen the military collaboration between Iran and Russia to bolster Hezbollah's defense capabilities. There are indications that Russia is already considering how it might assist the Houthis, Usher said. Among those seeking to dissuade such a move is Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MME reported, who in December spoke with Putin and reportedly spoke against the idea of sending missiles to the Houthis. Yeah, because you might get hit too. Saudi Arabia, like I said, U.S. launched a proxy war. Back in 2014, U.S. launched a proxy war against Yemen using Saudi Arabia and the UAE as their proxies. Funded them, gave them all types of money, all types of weapons, jets included, and they spent 10 years bombing these people, starving these people, got a blockade on Yemen's capital and everything. And it didn't work. The UAE said, damn, this war is not going anywhere. We're just losing men for nothing. So Saudi Arabia did the same thing. So they both dropped out of the proxy war. But Yemen hasn't forgot. So they're saying, Russia, don't give Yemen any sophisticated weapons because they might hit us. They're on our border, so they might hit us. Of course, he's going to say that. But here's the thing. The United States is funding its proxy, Ukraine, to attack inside of Russia, kill Russian civilians. And Putin talked about this asymmetric warfare. He's talked about possibly supplying U.S.'s ops around the world. So don't be surprised if we see some real damage going on that's severe enough to the point where the Navy can't lie about it. Don't be surprised if we see sailors, soldiers, Marines coming back in body bags because the United States wants to continue to launch all these unnecessary wars, and American people are sleeping at the wheel, not even questioning the government. 20 years ago, George Bush had to come up with a bunch of lies, scare people, talking about weapons of mass destruction. The mushroom cloud brought the little girl, had her crying and stuff. I think that was at the UN. At least he had to lie because people were asking questions. But now, so many Americans are so accustomed to forever wars, they're just completely sleep at the wheel, have no idea that the United States has thousands of troops over there fighting a war against Yemen. And why? So, let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think Russia will actually supply the Yemeni? Have they already supplied them? Will we see Russian weapons come from Yemen? And if so, what will the American response be? Will it be to just continue bombing Yemen? Will they do anything to Russia? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments below. Share the video. Thanks for watching.